Can you see these are all different?
Yes, they're all different.
I want you to select the card, but I know your hands are busy, so say stop somewhere.
Okay. Stop.
Right there?
Yes.
What do we got?
That's the 3 of clubs.
3 of clubs. I'm happy you chose a number card, and it's even better that it's a nice and simple one. See, to me, a number card has always been kind of a neutral card. Regardless of the suit, you may notice that a number card holds a simple number, a value, and then it illustrates that value by the amount of suits printed on the card. It's a direct translation of its value. Very simple. See, a face card is different. Depending on the suit of the face card, the king, the queen, the jack, they each have a different personality. There's the moody king, the suicide king, the temptress queen. There's much more of an overlay. It isn't a simple translation of its value. See, and in this sense, I think a number card can teach us about the simplicity of attending to the present moment. What I've come to realize is that if I'm able to attend to the actuality of my immediate experience, regardless of what's happening in that experience, there's a sense that I'm more the space for that experience. It doesn't feel as if I'm overwhelmed by the experience. There's a sense that I could respond from a place of peace, of power, and effectiveness rather than a place of agitation or discontent. Now, what I've come to realize is that the reason we often feel this way is that we mix up our stories and thoughts about the moment with the actuality of the moment, and we're not able to separate them. Why is this happening? This shouldn't be happening. I can't take this anymore. We project our thoughts into the future. What's going to happen to me, my family, my loved ones, money, job. We look at how others are handling the situation. Look at these politicians, organizations. They're not doing this right. They're ineffective. See, if we want to experience this situation in any productive way, in any constructive or peaceful way, we have to learn to separate the story of the moment with the actuality of the moment. I've been inspired to put together what I'm calling an awakening stimulus package that consists of certain ideas and tools that I've been using to get through this time in a peaceful, effective, powerful way, but that I've honestly been using for years in one way or another. Life's challenges come, and this is certainly a challenge that we're facing on a global scale. And I'm sure you've already heard from others that it does present an enormous opportunity. An opportunity for what? Well, I think first and foremost, an opportunity to really reassess how our lives have been going as individuals, how our lives as a collective species have been going, how we have been conducting affairs on this planet, to perhaps take a look at things that we've been too busy to look at or too quick to ignore, environmental things, political things, economic structures. And I think we're definitely being given the opportunity now to see what we may wish to improve upon, and to perhaps see how a lot of the old structures were not really serving us. The old paradigms. And certainly I think because it's such a globally felt situation, I think we're getting more of a sense of the importance of looking out for one another and the importance of coming together and working together. And yes, as humans, we have this tendency and pattern throughout the millennia to not really embrace change up until we reach kind of a critical moment. It's nice to see that we are working together through the physical distancing, through disseminating useful information, through understanding that we each have to play our part in this pandemic, if you will. That we each have to play our part in getting through it, in dissolving the virus. How amazing would it be if we can get together as a world like this in times where our survival does not appear to be so immediately threatened? What would it be like to live in a world where we each took responsibility for one another? Where everyone's well-being, every individual's well-being was also the responsibility of everyone else, and vice versa. If we constructed a world like that, where everyone's basic needs and dignities and the things that give rise and facilitate to a healthy, fruitful human life, education, not just the basic necessities. If we all came together and agreed today as a world, as a species, that we want everyone to experience this, and we'll work together to make sure everyone experiences it. It's not something they will have to earn. What a difference would that make? I want to talk a little about how I've been kind of perceiving the news in the media for a long time, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this. There seems to be this deeply embedded consciousness within the news and media, this pattern of looking to hook our attention, of putting viewership and clicks over disseminating useful information, over telling you what you really need to know, filling up the quota of stories, of viewers, over telling you what's actually what you should know today, what's beneficial for you to know, and then putting all that information in the proper context, in a context that doesn't elicit more fear for most people or leave them feeling powerless over the circumstance. And unfortunately, I'm still seeing these kinds of tactics of attention grabbing, resonating, making a headline that resonates with the fear of your own life within you, embellishing it in a way, or giving you a piece of information in a headline, then burying it under loads of other information that you didn't necessarily even want to know within the article. That straightforwardness and that proper context of giving you the information in a way where you could see, yes, here's the problem, but here's a potential solution. And it isn't doomsday. It isn't a hopeless situation. So perhaps this is a time for us to, if we haven't already, develop a certain kind of faculty within us, a faculty of discernment, the ability to discern what we ingest. Not only on the physical level with food and nutrients, but on the psychological level of what is it that we intake into our minds each day. Is it constructive? Is it information that is serving us? Or are we able to discern and determine that certain information seems to be there only to hook us into a particular state that then gets us to focus on it for as long as possible? Ultimately, it seems to me that there isn't that much we need to know on a daily basis at this particular time, certainly. There doesn't seem to be that much we need to know to really get through this time in a productive way, to get through it in the best possible way. I don't think we need to know that much. And I think what we do need to know is fortunately made quite available on the Red Cross and CDC websites. And these are practical steps that we can take. These are the recommendations of scientists. Here's what we need to do in order to contain this. Here's what we need to do to dissolve this situation. And if we can all work together to do that, then great. It really comes down to the ability to focus on solutions, to the ability to see the problem, not to ignore it, to not turn a blind eye, but to see the problem and to see it clearly. And then begin focusing on a solution. How can I get myself out of this personal predicament I'm in? Perhaps I've lost my job, perhaps whatever. What can I do? Can I reach out for help? Or can I, if there is nothing, can I just surrender and be okay that right now there's nothing I can do? If there truly is nothing you can do, then why suffer about it? If there is no action that you can see yourself taking, whether it's reaching out for help, whether it's seeing if you could work from home or something, probably by this time you may have looked into some of these things, but if you don't feel like there's really anything you can do, then what you can do is drop the story, drop the ideas of what will happen to me, my loved ones, my family, and attend to the immediacy of your experience. The immediacy being, this is where I am right now. I'm sitting in this room. I'm breathing. Taking in the perceptions. And in that immediacy, there is no suffering, there is no unhappiness. In that sustained attention to the immediacy of what's going on, it's quite okay. And the amazing thing is that if you're able to dwell in this immediacy of the present moment, you're much more likely to then get an inspired thought, an inspired idea of what you perhaps can do. But if you don't, that's fine. If you don't get an idea, at least you'll be at peace. And it will be more likely that beneficial circumstances will come to your life. You can take my word for it. Perhaps you can even look at your own life, that there is a correlation between your state of being and what occurs to you, what happens to you, what comes to you, the experiences, the things, the people. So this quality of discernment is, I believe, very important, certainly at this time. I believe it's quite obvious that there's so much fear going on, and I think it's becoming more obvious to people that the news isn't necessarily helping. that it isn't putting the information that, it isn't perhaps even giving us the information that we need to know on a daily basis. It's just putting out, here's the problem, here's another version of the problem, here's another case, here's another death, here's another story of the death. And if that's all you're looking at, attend to the solution. We already know there's people dying every day. You know that. You know this is unpleasant for many people. You know businesses have closed. You know people are out of jobs. We already know that. What's the point of focusing on the individual cases, the new cases that come out every day, the ordeals people have to go through? You already understand. We get it. It's difficult for many people. For most people. Now can we begin to focus on what we can do to move through this time, to use it as an opportunity? Can we focus more on that rather than the repetitive case by case of problems? So a lot of times the misunderstanding when someone talks about discerning or kind of hooking your attention away from the media is there's this kind of notion sometimes that, oh, you're turning a blind eye, you're trying to ignore. You are much more powerful when you're able to see a problem and then focus on a solution. It is focusing constantly on different iterations of a problem that keeps you stuck. You're turning a blind eye to the solution. So in that sense, a lot of the tactics that the media still unfortunately employs, and it's not that anyone's to blame, it's been there for as long as the media's been there probably, and many people are just doing it unconsciously. Some are probably doing it consciously. They understand that this is what we have to do to hook a person's attention. They understand that there's fear in many people, so if they put out something that resonates with that fear, it gets them thinking that they must read this to stay safe, that they will. Many are probably conscious of that, but perhaps they're not aware of the detrimental nature of presenting information in that way. And perhaps at this time in our evolution as a species, perhaps we can come to an awareness that this isn't the way we want to receive our information anymore. Perhaps we want to put first as to what is the most beneficial information to move us forward in the most beneficial and empowered way on a daily basis, regardless of whether we're in a pandemic or a war or nothing's going on of global significance in this way. Is it that helpful to dwell on the problems, or is it more helpful to see the problems, see them clearly, and then focus on the solution? So you'll have to be your own barometer here. You'll have to see what feels right for you to click on, to watch, to read. You have to be able to discern whether this particular headline seems like it's trying to just get you to go there and isn't going to really provide any valuable information to you. Or you may decide to not look at any for a while and simply follow the guidelines that have been put forth by the scientists, the Red Cross, CDC, etc. And keep looking at those as they get updated on a daily basis. Perhaps you found yourself in a place where you started to observe yourself and your mind and become more aware of your internal state. And perhaps many people are becoming aware that there's something within them that seems to have this same kind of parasitic quality, this quality of hooking their attention and wanting to grab their attention. I'm talking about our thoughts, our mental processes, of course. if you look at your mind, certainly if you've never done this before, if you sit and close your eyes and see, just observe your mind. See if you can stop thinking for 30 seconds. So you may notice that the thoughts kind of come on their own oftentimes. There isn't much volition. And you may notice that a lot of these thoughts are, certainly in these circumstances, they're very negative. They project you into negative future circumstances. They have a lot to say about your present immediate experience. They overlay all sorts of judgments, resistances on top of it. And you may notice that you don't even have a choice about whether you follow them or not. They kind of come, they hook you, and you go. So the opportunity here is to become more aware of this, because as you become more aware of what's going on in your mind, the opportunity for choice comes in. The opportunity to step back and say, no, I don't want to go there. That's not really of use, because is it really beneficial to dwell upon what ifs in your head? They're certainly not happening now. These are imagined scenarios that may happen, but they're not happening now. And you can't deal with scenarios that haven't happened. So if you're only dwelling on scenarios that may happen, obviously you feel powerless to do anything about it, because you can't do anything about something that isn't in front of you. But if you are able to take a deep breath, focus on the immediacy of your experience, and then if you wish, perhaps start thinking on a solution of what you can do, or again, if you can't do anything, surrender. Then perhaps your thoughts are being constructive. Perhaps there's a choice there now. It's a wonderful opportunity to notice that we all live with an inner newscast, so to speak, in our heads. Headlines of, I'm going to go broke in 30 days. What happens when you lose your job? News stories of yourself lying sick at home or in a hospital, dying. Same as with the outside circumstance. You see that this is your situation. You can clearly see this is your situation. I have no income coming in, being one example. Okay. Now drop that story even. Drop the I have no income story, and just attend to the immediacy of the present moment. You have to be able to move your attention. You have to be able to move your attention away from the thoughts. You have to bring it into sense perceptions, into the sights, the sounds. And you'll notice the thoughts try to come back and creep and say, no, go here. And you probably will go there, because there's so much momentum behind them. But that's okay. The moment you notice that you went there, you have the opportunity to bring your attention back into your breath, into these sounds, into the immediacy of your experience. And from that state, perhaps start thinking about solutions. And as you start thinking about solutions, you'll even notice then that those old patterns of dire scenarios start to come back in, and that's when you need to step back into the present moment. Dwell in it for as long as you can, or as feels comfortable, and then start thinking about those things again, about solutions. And if no solutions come, which would probably be for the minority of people, that there would truly be absolutely no plausible action that can come to them, then what's the point of suffering, of being agitated, of going into doomsday scenarios? If that's where you're meant to go, that's where you're meant to go. So be at peace here. And if you can be at peace here, then at least you'll be at peace if it's your time to go. But it is much more likely that helpful factors will start to present themselves in your life. When you're living it, when you're in it, in life, from a state of presence and peace. Another wonderful opportunity of this time is to begin to recognize the relationship between your inner state of being, your mental emotional state, and your health. This is something that, unfortunately, Western medicine still ignores to a large extent, though it is more and more acknowledged now. Certainly something Eastern medicine has known about for a long time. But for hard data on this subject, you could do your own research on the decades-long studies on the power of the placebo effect and the power of belief. There's a lot more recent research done on the power of meditation and how it relates to your health, and these are very statistically significant, measurable changes that occur to people who are able to access a state of peace and presence on a regular basis. The immune system gets strengthened immensely, along with countless other functions within the body that help everything run more smoothly. And I'll leave links below to some resources that you can look at. Lastly, I think for those that may be a little more spiritually inclined already, to remind you or expose you to perhaps a more metaphysical perspective. And that's to be able to see this time as an opportunity created by our collective consciousness, a mass event, if you will. Ponder the possibility that perhaps we create our realities, and that we create them from multiple levels, from levels that we're both aware of and unaware of. And that ultimately the purpose of our souls or greater beings, if you will, is to evolve into higher and higher states of consciousness, of peace, of unity, of love, of self-expression and love and unity. And that perhaps this has been created as an opportunity to look at that which we have ignored. The environment, the effects of our economic, social, political systems, but primarily to look at ourselves. And to notice that for many, perhaps, our lives have been, in a way, a means to distract ourselves from looking at our inner states, from looking at our pains, our sorrows, our resentments, our hurts. And to perhaps recognize that just because we've been ignoring them doesn't mean that they haven't been in operation. Doesn't mean that they haven't informed our choices and actions and experiences. And that perhaps it's much more unpleasant to go through life ignoring our internal landscape, rather than the temporary unpleasantry of taking a look within. Taking a look within, getting help in doing so by reading books or watching videos. There's plenty of incredible teachers and people that talk on the subject. I will leave links to that as well. to start taking a look at that. And by doing so, giving yourself the opportunity to transcend it, to look through it, to understand. And when all is said and done, to go back into the world as a new you. To perhaps get in touch with a passion, using this time to get in touch with a passion. And start acting on it in whatever way you can, given your circumstance. This is a global overhaul, and the opportunity is both individual and collective. If you have not been satisfied with your life leading up to this point, here's a chance for you to overhaul everything, potentially. Same goes for us as a global community. So, I hope that this has been helpful. And stay tuned for part 2 of the Awakening Stimulus Package, where we will be talking about some quantum physics type stuff. How we can put our current situation in a more metaphysical, scientific framework that can lead to us feeling a sense of empowerment and a sense that we can even contribute to the collective simply from where we are right now. That we don't necessarily even have to leave our homes to do so. So Godspeed, and I will see you shortly.